you. On behalf of Mr Trewavas, our Mayor, who's unwell, and we're sorry to hear that, and we hope he's going to be better soon. Tuesday, Councillor Freeman, would you like to do our karakia?
I te atua kaharoa ki a tata mai koe ki a mātou I tēnei rā. Manaki te a mātou mahi katoa, I runga I tēnua, o te matua, o te tama, o te wairua tapu, ake ake, āmene.
Amen. Thank you. So, as I said, welcome to everyone and thank you very much. So, without further ado, we have our webcam on and microphones on, everyone. Everyone ready to go? Do I have any apologies? Apart from our worship, yes, which we have noted. And mover and a seconder for that.
I'll move.
Thank you. We have mover and a second. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Right, item 3.1. So, confirmation of the minutes of the meeting on the 25th of October. Do we have any amendments? No? Rightio. Do we need a mover and seconder for that? Okay. 4.1? No. 8th of November? Sorry, thank you. Any amendments for that one? Okay, no amendments? Right. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving.
And seconder? Thank you. Thank you. That's it. Right. Item 4.1. Right. Mr Lewis, welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Councillors. I have a report here for the update of the traffic control bylaw. Ordinarily, Fred would consider these matters. They relate to updating either traffic signs or traffic markings in a number of streets in Taupo. I'll take the item as read and try and answer any questions.
I'm waiting for the mayor to catch my eye.
Yep, just so through the chair, on page 15 with the diagram of Runanga Street, I'm just trying to get my bearings. I gather at the bottom of the page where there's cars sort of parked that way and that way, is that Taupo Toyota?
Yes.
So 8 and 9's quality print, is that right?
I'm not that familiar with the...
Yes,
Right,
it is.
thank you.
Yeah, I think that'll be right.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
so just one question in regards to that Runanga Street, which has just been mentioned, both the document on page 11 and on page 12 mention the number 10 to 16. Just below page 12's, if you like, graph of the areas that we're talking about, it talks about 8 to 16 Runanga Street. So is 8 included in that yellow line, or the line?
No, the yellow line extends from... I'm not sure, it doesn't have a number on the plan there, but it's next to 8 and 10. It just doesn't have a street address.
Well, I was just wondering whether it included the property of number 8, which is one of those that apparently have received numerous complaints, whether it included number 8.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't, thank you.
Any further questions on the item?
Just one question through the chair, thank you, to Mr Lewis. The cafe that's in Runanga Street, have you talked to them as well about what the implications of this parking may mean on their business?
I haven't personally, but my staff have been speaking to those properties that were affected, yes.
So all of them, okay, thank you, not just the ones that had issues. Thank you.
Any other questions about any of the other areas in question? Okay, do we have a mover on the motion? Thank you, councillor Cousins. Seconder, Jollins, thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Right. Item 4.2. Botanical Heights Construction and Contract. Good afternoon, Flash and Gemma.
Hello.
Good afternoon, councillors.
I'll leave you in Gemma's hands as I'm here purely as eye candy.
You wish.
In my dreams.
We had that over the years.
Well, I guess in terms of a summary for this particular item, it's to do with our Botanical Heights subdivision, which most of you are aware of. We have made significant progress in regards to stages 3B and 3C with, as per the report, 14 contracts in place. Since that time, we've got another couple of sale and purchase agreements out with parties for their review and hopefully return in the near future, and 2 further interested parties who are looking at a couple more of the, I guess, what would be 4 left. So with that in mind, we've looked at the opportunity to continue and do the 7 future lots, which is the end of this subdivision scheme plan, which was 39 lots. And due to the timing, obviously being ahead of when we were hoping, or sort of predicting, I guess is the best way to look at it, we've requested the funding for the entirety of the project so that we can have it go ahead, and Inframax, because they're on site at the moment constructing, we've proposed that we extend the contract with them to continue with the rest of the subdivision and hopefully get less disruption for neighbours in the area by having the construction happen concurrently with the 3B and 3C that's on at the moment. So if there's any further questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Councillor Cousins.
Through the chair, thank you for that. Firstly, I want to start to say, Flash and friends of mine bought a section through council, and they're going to say you handled it really, really well. So,
Secret shopper, that's fantastic.
I've got some questions. Why? I meant to ask this prior to the meeting, but why were there 2 figures in there? Why is 1596 and 1358? Just clarify that for us,
Yep.
please.
Through you, Mr. Councillor Harvey, sorry. The way that is split up is Inframax's construction cost is the $358,000, so that's the contract that we need to extend, and the 596 is the total rounded figure, including development contributions and all the other elements that come along with the construction. So
in all, it's 596,000 to
Yes.
subdivide off 7 sites?
Yep.
My question there will be, that's about 98k per site, including GST. It's a bit high for the industry norm.
It's relatively comparative to stage 3A, which was around about that. The reason being because of how it's structured and the way in which it extends. So the road is going up what's the top of the gully head between Botanical Gardens and what will be the gully to the north of that, and therefore there's no sections that come off that frontage. So in terms of the subdivision we've just done, we had sections that came off right of way, which is less expensive than the extension of the road. So it basically centres around road and infrastructure.
Moving back from that.
Not part of this cost of development contributions, it's effectively you paying yourself.
Yep. So, and just to clarify, because it got very confused, not confused, it's been a while, but we originally with 3A, B and C, we funded in advance, didn't we, for some pre-development work? Was D not part of that? Just going back, is that?
So yes, so stages 3A was the construction of all of the earthworks for 3A through to 3D and included 3D. So that was the earthworks element of it rather than anything else beyond that was done. So there was undercutting and the other elements associated with it were done as part of 3A. In addition to that, obviously there's been the change in market which we've noted through the increase in cost for 3B and C that compared to 3A, and that's, I guess, is part of the reflection of the change in cost here.
So cost to develop for these sites is actually more than 100k per site. I'm just not disagreeing, but putting this through, but I'm just trying to get a handle on that.
I haven't done the price per lot, but I don't think it's over 100k. In terms of if we did a roundup of the entire 3A to 3D, I don't think it goes over that.
After the decision today, could you send me that, what it is per cost, per site, just as for my information?
I think
roughly, not exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I can work that out, yep.
Can that be clarified?
So yeah, after that, we can get those.
Yeah, I can give you the specifics. I think in the previous stage, the 3A, I think it was around 1.24 for the total construction for the 12 lots. So that's around 100K for the original phase. Well, I think it's close to 3 million. Yeah. So I haven't got the exacts because, of course, these are the conditional contracts in place that are still to be confirmed.
Third, the rule of thumb, so that's not bad.
Any other questions?
Are we going to be borrowing money for this?
No.
Borrowing money for this? Yes. Just raise the question, just want to clarify, we're borrowing money to complete the subdivision, is that correct?
Yes, we are looking at unbudgeted expenditure, but on the basis that the profit from 3B and C is greater than what we'd actually budgeted for this year. You could say, in fact, that we're using some of the surplus income. What we are talking about was budgeted for next year, so we're looking at bringing it forward because of the market demand, and we've actually sold those sections a lot quicker than we thought. So while we've got the construction team there doing the road, it made sense just to extend it rather than go for them to take the equipment away and then come back again and start again.
Madam Chair, I'm not against what we're attempting to do. I'm just wondering why we need to borrow when we've just heard of the profits that we may have or have off the developments already.
That's because we treat income separate to expenditure. The income is revenue, the expenditure is capital expenditure. So
this capital expenditure will be covered by income.
Yes.
Thank you.
So do we have a mover and a seconder? Got several. Right.
Fine.
All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Right. Item 4.3. Back to you, Mr. Lewis.
Use the resolution. What's the issue with it?
Madam Chair, councillors, back in May, Council received an agenda item regarding electric vehicle charges, and staff were asked to seek out expressions of interest. That was done. They've received 9 expressions of interest. Of those 9, 4 were actually interested in supplying and installing chargers into up to a maximum of 2 car parks. In the report, we've identified who the 4 were, with our preferred supplier being ChargeNet. I would take any questions at this stage.
Yes, Councillor Park.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. On page 25, under the options, with disadvantages of it being offered to Charge.net, it says may not have community support. What is meant by that?
What that's meaning is that if it didn't proceed, if it was offered to, irrespective of who it was, a supplier, then there may not be community support for the loss of the car parks for EV chargers.
Oh, right, so it's about that, a motive issue
Yes.
around, okay, great, thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry.
There you go.
With Charge.net, I see they have a network of stations. Does that mean if there are any issues that there is someone based around, like in Rotorua? Because I noticed a couple of local companies also showed some interest. But I just want to be reassured that if we're not using a local company, and even though this one obviously does have experience, that if there were issues, they have someone accessible to our site.
I'm uncertain of where the closest operating depot is for ChargeNet. It's just that they are establishing a nationwide network. I think Tauranga and Napier and Rotorua are the closest sites. But that, whether they've got an operating base at any of those, I'm not too sure, whether they're just the charge stations.
Great, thank you. I think it's great to see us moving forward in this space.
Any other?
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, Councillor Harvey. Just a couple of questions from me, Dennis. Do we know how many existing charging stations we have in town?
No, we don't. I believe there is one charging station at the present time.
One, okay. The next question from me is, I'm assuming that these people will be charging people to use the station?
Yes, correct.
Okay, are we charging them or going to have a licence to occupy what is effectively public space?
It would be a licence to occupy. It would be up to council to decide whether they want to charge anything for them or not.
Okay, I just wonder about the philosophy of that and would just like to understand what councillors' views around this room are on that. And the last one was just if these stations are not well used, do we have a point in the contract where we say they are to come down or be removed if they're not being, used?
We could certainly include that in the licence to occupy, yes.
It's just, we are hopeful that they will be used, but I just wouldn't like to see them gathering dust there and find we've lost car parks and they're not being used.
Those things, through Madam Chair, those things definitely could be for the contract. And I'd say if you were of a mind to approve this for ChargeNet or any other providers today, let us know what they are so that then our lawyer can put them into the contract or into the lease, licence, whatever it happens to be. So at this stage, all we've done is gone out and tested the market, and the recommendation is ChargeNet given their national setting. But really, it's up to you to identify now on what grounds do you allow it. This is a new activity. We haven't allowed it on council land before. So it's do you want to accommodate it, and if so, under what terms?
Okay. From my perspective, I'd be quite interested in us exploring whether we had a licence to occupy as part of that agreement.
Charging.
Yeah. Charging something, yeah.
It'd have to be a licence to occupy. It's just what the terms of that. Sure.
Well, we charge our local cafes and bars and restaurants to put tables out on and chairs out on pavements. Would we not have the same philosophy for a charging station? Just up for discussion.
Any other thoughts on that? Councillor Cousins?
I think that it's actually a very good point, that it's a commercial activity. At the end of the day, they're making money out of it. So we want to be supportive as part of the new technologies and embracing the future, but I think there should be a charge for that. My question was, on their website, they cite that they're already building a site in Taupo in the first quarter of next year in Taupo. On their website, I wondered, have they got two sites, have they?
No, it's wishful thinking that we're going to get this. One of the advantages with ChargeNet is that you can have an account with them, and they will have, you can put on your key ring something like that, and you can just swipe it, and your charge goes through. So, because that's the advantage of having a nationwide network.
Waitomo Energy have the same thing in Turangi and other places with their unmanned petrol stations, and they're paying ground rent to people for it, so I just think we need to follow through on that. I didn't even think of that, Roseanne, it's a good point.
Just through the chair, I'm not closed to whether we have a licence to occupy or not, but I'd be quite interested to see what other councils do, because, one of the things about us is free parking and accommodating everybody, so we should be accommodating electric like we do mobility and everything else, I think. So yeah, I'd just be quite interested to see what the other sort of councils in the areas that ChargeNet work with, what they do.
Yes, because we want to be similar, wouldn't we?
Yes, but I don't think we should treat electric car parking spaces any different from mobility or 60-minute 120 all day.
This isn't just car parking, this is about a charging, so it's probably more akin to a petrol station than a car park.
Yes, but I'd still like to know what other councils
So we've looked at that in other councils. There's a wider range as what you can think of, from full commercial rent essentially through to free of charge given the community benefit. So there is the range. Some councils allow on street, some allow off street, some allow one company, some open it up to any companies. Because you could in fact approve all four, which would be up to 8 car parks, and you could have them all sitting there. But whether or not they would actually want to be next to their competitors is another story. But that's the sort of the range that you've got to work with. So there's no right or wrong answer. Other councils sort of I guess it is an unknown technology at this stage, and it's
Yeah.
something that's evolving.
Chairman, could I then raise the question, though, when this first came before council some time ago, I raised word that we were going to the big energy providers. Did any of them respond, or didn't you go to them when you sent out expressions of interest?
The expressions of interest were publicly advertised through both the Herald and the Dominion and through the GETS online tender. One of those, Unison, is an energy supplier. I'm not aware of any of the others that are energy suppliers. Certainly Electrics were working with Vector, I think it was, who were an energy supplier.
Oh, just thinking about the Zeds and the BPs and stuff, but if they haven't responded, I'll accept that. I'm just wondering with the questions that Councillor Jolens has raised, whether this should be tabled until we get that further information, or we make our decisions what we're going to charge or not charge.
So I think you need to make your decision whether or not you wish to charge or not. If you wish to charge, then the right mechanism, in my opinion, would be for us to get an evaluation of that, the same as what we do for any of other activities. So you talk about tables and chairs, we do that on a valuation basis. What is that space worth for that activity? Which would be the normal way that council undertakes business. So if the question is, do you want them there? If so, which company and how many car parks? And if so, under what terms? So do you want to charge or not? Those are sort of the fundamental questions we need to answer.
Well, my concern at the moment is the car park issue. We continually get hammered with taking car parks from the central CBD. This is another exercise with more again. Whether it's good or bad, I can't answer that.
It appears to be in an area where it's not a high car park area.
That was the reason that you picked initially and asked us to look at that site. There was two fundamental reasons. One was that there's a transformer right there. Obviously these things do require a lot of electricity and so therefore need a transformer in close proximity, and there's one in that vicinity. And the second issue is that that's our most underperforming car park, off-street car park in the CBD at the moment. And I think the photo will show you that. There's a number of vacant spaces. I don't know what time the photo was taken, but a number of vacant spaces. And it is our most underutilised car park in the CBD currently, which is why you initially asked us to look at that site.
So I think I'm happy enough that it's a viable proposition. It's just a matter of the charging, isn't it? So,
And just through the chair, just another thought too is the length of the licence to occupy in case we had some alternative uses for that land in the future. I mean, I quite like the location because you can walk into town and you can walk everywhere, so it's quite a pragmatic solution, but I wouldn't want to lock us in for too long. Just another thought for the table.
Through the chair, I'm happy to move the recommendation, but with that amendment that Gary's talking about, that subject to finalisation of the piece.
can we do it like that? Yep. So you're happy to move the motion?
With the changes as discussed.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Item 4.4. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Chief Executive's report.
Right, so I'll start off and I'll ask the team to come forward. We've got Mr. Lewis, Mr. Carroll and Mr. Ward who will take us through the report. I guess all I'd say to start that process off is, as I've said in my report, we're obviously coming through an incredibly busy period at the end of this year. I was pleasantly surprised, I guess, when I read the information in the report around the number of building consents, how busy we've been, but how buoyant the economy has been. I think if you go for a drive around Kinloch or up Nukahawa, you'll see that in action. The development in town is amazing. So that obviously means that our team, our regulatory team, are incredibly busy, but also means that we've got more growth coming in for development contributions and rates going forward as well, which is a good thing for us, obviously, financially. And particularly pleasing that the team have been able to do that, but still remain probably the most competitive in the country in terms of the number of days that they're taking to process the consents, which is great. So I'll probably leave it there, and if we go to the report and ask the gentleman in front of you to step us through.
Chair, just before we do, are we going to comment on your written report?
On the covering report, you're more than welcome to.
It's a very minor matter. Once again, we've said that 99% of the dogs in the district have been registered, but if I remember a little while ago, an email from yourself, I think, came out and said no in dogs. wondering whether we change it just 90% of non-dogs.
Dogs, obviously, it's
Yeah,
the dogs
non-dogs.
that we know about that we can count. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Have you got some dogs we don't know about?
I'm not going to get personal.
But again, I would say that's an incredible figure. We had a presentation lately at the, back at the Rural Provincial Sector from Auckland Council, and they were applauding the fact that they were at up to 80%. So for us to be 99% is brilliant.
Good.
So just through the chair, can I just add to that? I was with Louise Upston the other day, and she, as the Associate Minister who's been looking at these issues, was extremely surprised and happy with the performance of TDC in that respect.
Like a dog with a bone.
Yes.
Yeah, fabulous.
Right, if I can take you to page 32. So as per the last meeting we went through this is the high-level summary in a more illustrative form. So if you look through there from your rates revenue, your other operating revenue, less your operating expenditure, you'll see all of those are looking fundamentally on track there with just minorly favourable variances, and then the breakdown of the four key expenditure items there, personnel costs through other expenditure, all pretty well tracking on course as we've forecast. Probably the key thing to note on the first page, which will come through, is basically operating revenue at 1.5 million favourable. So that's been alluded to already. A fair bit of that's around the regulatory income. Flicking over to page 33, just the more of the balance sheet side of it there. Again, pretty well as forecast in terms of the borrowings in cash to get to the net cash position of 48, and capital expenditure to date 4 million. And you can see the graphs there across the activities. Going to page 34, so this is the more traditional statement of comprehensive revenue expense or profit and loss account. So this is just breaking down from page 32, and as you'll see there, the key variances there is in fees and charges and other revenue, and out in the box on the side we've given the explanations, the high-level explanations of the key variances there, which is predominantly around the income. As you can see, the expenditure is within 45,000 of budget. I'll pause on that page to see if there's any questions before we, at a high level, before we go into the groups of activity, the first one being community services.
Councillor Hickling.
Through you, Madam Chair. Neil, is there any opportunity to have that box with the type in just a little bit bigger? Please.
I agree.
I feel that I need new glasses and I don't. The blue bit I can read really well, but I'm having difficulty with...
Thank you for that feedback, Councillor, because all three of us gentlemen here, when we picked up the reports, went because you may have noted the one that we presented last month was actually bigger. So yes, we had a bit of an internal glitch there that will be fixed for the next meeting. So our apologies for our apologies for that. Yes, because I think I need glasses as well now. So,
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll, if there's Councillor.
It's just pleasing to see the sales of Harrods about up by 136,000. Why is that? Is that for the dairy farming and the economy sort of strengthened, obviously?
Pretty much.
Yeah. It's good to hear.
Yeah, we're good at growing grass. Okay, I'll hand over to Nick, I think.
Good afternoon, councillors. Community services is the first group of activities. What you'll see this month is that we've now got our full report sitting in front of you. So first page is around your finances for community services. Then we go on to talk about the performance measures, and what you won't have are any specific projects related to community services. But you'll see those sitting in other groups of activities as we go through. The reason there are no projects there are because none were identified in the long-term plan. This is very much about a group of activities focused primarily on our regulatory services. So it's very much service delivery driven. Gareth mentioned earlier when he was discussing his covering report the growth that we're seeing as a district, and you're seeing that come through in terms of the finances, and particularly that 191k variation in terms of the fees and charges, where we're on the positive side, which is always a nice thing. That's very much reflective of that development that we're seeing, that surge in growth in the district. So real positive. Over the page, in terms of service delivery, you'll see we're running at 88% in terms of the performance measures. That essentially relates, or that 12% we've not met relates to those two performance measures sitting there. Unfortunately, due to the nature of the way that those two performance measures have been drafted, if we fail to deal with one particular instance, as we have on those two, then that's going to essentially be a black mark throughout the year. So there's no ability to recover, I guess, in terms of those. However, what I would highlight is that the process issues associated with those two have been identified and addressed by staff, so we won't see a repeat of that. Because of that, we don't intend to just continue to repeat that same box month after month. So now that you've seen it, we'll take that away next month. But you will notice that little red wedge sitting in there, little red wedge. That we want to.
Only showing the issues, not all.
Oh yeah, sorry. Good point, Dennis. The other difference that you'll see in this report to the ones that you've previously seen is that with regard to the performance measures, we've shown you the overall performance in a graph, and we've only pulled out the details for the ones where we've not hit the target. And that's very much about letting you as governance focus on the areas where you really need to put your energy and attention. So you'll see that as a pattern as we go through the report. Over to you.
Right. No questions.
Any other questions?
Is this in regards to the total projects like water, transport, the whole lot? Go through as we go.
Come to that. So now I'll move on to there's a number of groups of activities that I'll be talking about, and we'll just work through those. First up is the water activity, and just some highlights there. Everything's in terms of budget is tracking pretty right. Our expenditure is just below what we're forecasting. I would just like to add at this stage that these past 3 or 4 months we've been targeting leak detection, particularly in Taupo, in advance of the summer months to deal with any major leaks that we might have, to try and sort of preserve the water that we're using, and so that's reflective in that expenditure. In terms of, and what I would ask that if councillors have got any questions that they can ask them as I'm going through rather than wait until the end of each activity, please interrupt me. In terms of service performance, we're currently meeting all of our KPIs, hence the green circle. And then we go through each of the key projects. Botanary is a particularly key project for us, and currently that's tracking pretty much on target. The designers have fallen a couple of weeks behind with their design outputs, but we're pretty sure that we can get them back on target again. All of the other projects shown there are pretty much on track. You'll notice that Bonshore Park has got a nice orange button. This is a project that's been on the go for a couple of 3 years. The well driller was up on site a week before last, completed a bore, found a good volume of water. The initial tests suggest that the arsenic level is half what the maximum accepted value is. So if you recall, some of the earlier tests or earlier wells were drilled, we were getting values well in excess of that MAV. Unfortunately, the tests at the moment, already tests indicate quite a significant level of iron and manganese. So we need to do some further flow testing and further testing of the water just to confirm what those values might look like. But we're getting water and it's got a relatively low arsenic level at this stage. And that work will be done in the next couple of weeks.
Chairman, just following on for that, can Mr Lewis confirm or deny that if the Bonshaw Park water supply is not adequate for a variety of reasons, that they'll have the same opportunities to hook onto the Tapo supply as Waitanui?
What exactly am I confirming or denying, Councillor Buddy?
I'm really taking the PISS out. Effectively, here's a group within our community that are struggling for an adequate water supply. So I raised that question whether they'll be given the same opportunity as Waitanui.
I think the short answer is that that's totally over to you.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Are we asking questions now?
Yeah, got water.
Water we are. Water now. It's not a question. Just a note for council that the Mutuapa Ratepayers Association, they're grumbling about their decision to do the water reservoirs. It's going to be a targeted rate, not happy at all. Did try to tell council at the time we made a decision. I said to the ratepayers group, there's democracy, and that's what was decided on the day. I just wanted to let you know that was the feedback from the village.
Transport. See there that our operating expenditure is just slightly advanced of where we thought we would be, but it's all within manageable limits. The transport expenditure can be quite variable. Typically at this time of the year, or just prior to this, we're doing a lot of maintenance activities leading up to the reseals, which usually occur in either December, January, February in the summer months. So all of the pre-reseal maintenance activity is undertaken in the earlier months of the year. In terms of projects, Poipi Road has been finished. It's been completed. Seal extension, we've got a 2K seal extension plan, and it's intended that that go out to tender fairly shortly. Turning to page 42, you'll see there that the Hoka Falls footpath, that's still on target. We're preparing tender documentation at the moment. We've identified an issue with the Whairoka to Rainbow Point where the design is required to include retaining walls for some sections, and that wasn't allowed for in the original budget. And we've been looking at what we can do with that to minimise that cost, and that project is currently out to tender.
Just through the chair, have you sort of got a guesstimate of how much more?
At this stage, it is a guesstimate, and I wouldn't like to use guesstimates when we get the tender prices, and I'll be able to say with some certainty exactly what that will look like.
Well, Mr Chairman, I raised this question with Mr Manhattan this morning. He said he'd, I think, talked to you, Mr Lewis. I'm a little bit concerned that the 100,000 or 50% is funded from outside. The fact that we did this through the long-term plan process without any designs of that particular walkway to come up with now that we need another 70,000 being spent. I'm not quite sure how this should be addressed. We wait to the next long-term plan, because at the moment I'm not very happy with proceeding with something that's so far out of the original budget that was approved.
At this stage, we don't know what that's going to look like. I'm not sure where you got the $70,000 from.
It shows here under page 42 that it's now 170,000 when in fact it was 100. This budget was phased over 2 years. I believe there was 70 in the first year and 100 in the second year. So effectively then, there's no more funding required other than what was approved in the long-term plan?
There was 170 approved in the long-term plan. At this stage, we don't know what the outcome of the tender process will be that could result in additional funding. In answer to the question about the long-term plan, the estimates for a long-term plan So for this project that commenced long-term plan 2015, we put together in 2013, we allow for detailed design in the long-term plan leading up to a construction. So at that stage, it's more of a guesstimate rather than detailed estimates.
Well, Mr Chairman, now with the further development that's going on out in that area, is it prudent for us to put this on hold until we see what the requirements are of that further development?
The development that's occurring further out on Lake Terrace at Whaiwaka are on the other side of the road, so they're the eastern side of Lake Terrace. There's provision within there for footpaths along their frontage, but this footpath is on the opposite side of the road, so that'll be on the western side of Lake Terrace.
So the provision for that other footpath, was that already in the long-term plan? Or is it just a provision?
So this path was in the long-term plan, and you've already made a decision that you're going to continue on with it. What I'd say is that what Mr. Lewis is indicating is that there's potential that the tender, when it comes in, may be over that. That's when you'll get another opportunity to reassess. Do you wish to spend that extra money or not at that time? At this point, we simply don't know. That tender might come in at a whole lot under that budget. We don't know until the market tells us what the value is. At the moment, you do have a resolution saying we shall do the project, and you can change that once you know how much the market's willing to or going to cost to construct.
Okay, so it's not set in concrete, even though it's been approved?
The project has been approved, but until you get the funding, if it came in under budget, then I'd be signing it off under my delegation. I've got the ability to do that. If it's over budget, then it has to come back to you for approval for the unbudgeted component, and that's when you would be able to have the opportunity to say, actually, we don't want to spend that.
Thank you.
Community facilities. Community facilities are tracking pretty much on target. So I'll just go back a sec. Community facilities, so that's things like libraries, art galleries, museum, Great Lakes Centre, pools, gyms, housing for the elderly, toilets and cemeteries. So covers a wide range of stuff, parks and reserves. Largely tracking on budget in terms of operational expenditure. They've still got some capital expenditure program for the second half of the year. Majority of the capital budget is in renewals of buildings, parks and reserves. If you've got any detailed questions, I'm going to have to direct them at Mr. Wood.
So the Chair, I know Stump Bay wasn't here, is that Steve? Is that Stump Bay toilets? Is that too far gone?
Yeah.
Is it?
That's been built, I think.
Yeah. Right, so does it need to be in here? No. No, okay, that's one.
The Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could I just come back to the business on transport and this footpath, because I need something clarified. It's got under the agenda item, the budget is for 16-17, 170,000. And yet the annual plan budget, out of the annual plan, states 100,000, hence my question about the 70.
So it's the total project budget.
So that you've got is the annual plan for the 1 year at 100. The year before that had $70,000 in it. So we didn't spend that obviously, so we carried it forward, add the two together, there's your 170. So the total project cost has always been budgeted at 170, but over 2 years.
This year finishes on the 30th of June 17.
Yeah, but we carried the 70,000 forward because we didn't spend it that previous.
Thank you.
Finished?
I am at the moment, thank you.
Community facilities, if you have a look at service delivery, and again we are the same sort of situation as Nick mentioned earlier. The customer satisfaction service delivery measures haven't been met, and that will stay with us for the rest of the year. So we'll be reporting this once and then removing that from future reports. Wastewater. Again, operating expenditure is tracking just slightly behind where we forecast. So far this year, we haven't had too many in the way of wastewater spills. I think that is a result of the work we've done over the last 12 or 18 months with sewer cleaning networks, which has improved that significantly. Nothing out of the ordinary with the expenditure for wastewater. We're also meeting 100% of our service delivery targets. And in terms of projects, I draw your attention to the Turangi wastewater treatment plant, which is one that we had previously identified. We were working with Department of Internal Affairs to get the material from dredging to enable us to build a pond. They had some difficulty with that last summer, and so our project is put on hold until we get more material, which I understand is happening this summer from DIA. And the Kinloch wastewater disposal field, there's been some delays there. We've finalised, or nearing to finalising the design, and through the consenting process we're now required to go out and consult with those people that submitted to our original consent. Solid waste. Everything's tracking pretty much according to plan. You'll notice there that we're behind in capital expenditure, but that's relating to one project, the building of a new cell up at the landfill. And if you see onto page 49, that project is underway. They've been working out there now for about a month. And that should be finished in a couple of months' time. Service delivery, again, we're unlikely to meet our target of just over 21,000 tonnes, primarily due to taking in biosolids from our wastewater treatment plant and just the increased activity in the building sector, where we're getting a lot of construction material coming into the landfill.
Through the chair, I'll ask a couple of questions about solid waste, if I may. Just in terms of the vermi composting, a few months back, I think I raised with Mr. Green that there was a potential for some government funding. There is the Solid Waste Minimisation Fund. Did we progress an application through there?
We looked into the application, and the applications were for new initiatives. And vermi composting, because it's already a current activity, we weren't going to be able to get anything. If we were able to do some further work, we might be able to encourage other waste streams into the vermi composting operation that would then attract that subsidy, and that's what we're looking at doing.
Future. Yeah, cool, because I think it's something worth exploring in the future. And my last question was just about the ETS, emissions trading. I know that there's been some changes there. Do we understand what implications that might have on our operational costs with the unit charges changing? They're going to go up, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah,
Is this something we need to be aware of?
Yeah, the market itself has moved significantly.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So yeah, they're currently trading ETS. NZUs are currently trading around $18. So they were down, got down as low as $2.50 or something like that. So yes, in the 17-18 plan, there will be a significant increase in ETS charges coming through. That's out of our control, obviously, it's market driven.
Right, thank you. One to watch for.
Yep.
Right, thank you.
Right, stormwater's tracking pretty much according to budget in terms of operation, expenditure, service delivery, again, meeting all of our KPIs in terms of service delivery. The two projects we have in stormwater, EnviroPods, they've been installed, and the tender documentation is currently out for a quality improvement device at the end of Ruapehu Street, and so those tenders will be closing shortly.
Democracy and Planning's got a nasty little red bit there. About 30% of the performance measures in terms of that service delivery are not being met. Unfortunately, you don't have a whole lot of ability to change that, and that's because about 10 of the 14 performance measures in this area relate directly back to the satisfaction survey that we do every 3 years. So what you're looking at there is the legacy from the last survey, 14-15. The good news is that the new NRB survey is intended to be undertaken in the first part of 2017. So we'll get a new set of results which will allow us to update these graphs. In terms of projects, the flood hazard one, you'll remember we had a discussion through a workshop relatively recently about progress there. We've been having some discussion with the Waikato Regional Council around co-funding some of that investigation work into the wave run-up hazard. That's progressing well, and we've got some further discussion coming up shortly, which is suggesting that we may be able to cut some of those costs down for the 17-18 year. So that's moving positively. Just over the page, the Turangi Reserve Management Plan that we're developing in conjunction with Ngāti Turangi Tukua is going very well. It had a bit of a slow genesis as we gathered some momentum on that project, but it would be fair to say that the team's working very strongly with Ngāti Turangi Tukua now, and we're getting some excellent results back. So we're looking forward to that progressing reasonably fast. The only other comment I was going to make is around the second to last one there, where we've got the red traffic light. We note the traffic bylaw potentially going out for consultation over summer. We've just been having some internal discussion around the timing of that. There's some issues being raised about parking on berms, and there's an intention to discuss those with the Fred Committee early in 2017. Given the potential for that bylaw to potentially have some regulatory controls around the berm issues, we think it's probably wise for us to just hold off, wait till we've had that discussion with the Fred Committee, and then we can proceed with that bylaw change if necessary. So just a slight delay while we look at the potential to include that.
Just through the chair, just on behalf of Bike Taupō, how confident are you with your expectation that the walking and cycling strategy will commence in early 2017?
We've got some resourcing challenges, it would be fair to say. We've definitely stretched the team in the first half of this financial year. However, we've got some money set aside to engage a consultant to help project manage that. The big advantage of having a consultant is you can drive them very hard, and they've got the ability to call in additional resources as and when required, which we don't necessarily have. So we'll definitely stay in touch with regard to that. I'm confident that we'll be able to have a full draft completed by the end of the financial year, but that's obviously something we'll need to stay in touch on.
Yes, because it was programmed that this policy would be done in the 2016-17 financial year.
Yes.
So yeah, just need to keep pushing that one, unfortunately, for you.
Definitely.
Through the chair, just thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Page, on the bottom of page 54, the Turangi Tongariro Community Board. I'm sure Councillor Kingi will agree with me that the board has taken a pretty proactive proactive stance on what we'd like to achieve over the next 3 years, and we've got some fantastic goals and projects we're going to focus on. Once again, as always, to Cornelia and to Tina for the help there, but we look forward to our first workshop on that one. There's some really cool stuff going to come out of the community board.
Right, the investment activity there. So probably the main thing I just bring your attention to is in the explanations on the it's page 55 on the right hand side there. So you can see there's some additional revenue coming through in a couple of areas there around some lease revenue from loans and sundry income, some additional finance revenue, interest income. and then some accounting stuff in terms of mark to market on foreign exchange. They're both up and down. Going to the next page, you'll see that in terms of the service delivery, everything is 100% on track as per the LTP. And back to Nick.
Not much to add in terms of economic development. You will have had your workshop this morning. I expect around the Section 17A work that's being done going forward. I think that offers some real potential in terms of looking at the way we conduct our business, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing the results come out of that. What that work may also assist us to do is a bit of a refresh of our performance measures. You'll see that the performance measures that we've currently got in the LTP are very much about measuring our performance against how the rest of the country's going, and there's some real question marks internally about whether that's an appropriate way to measure performance, particularly given that as a council you've got relatively few levers that you can pull to change this performance. So it's certainly something that we're focusing on as we look forward to the next long-term plan. And again, no specific projects sitting underneath the economic development set of activities.
Just a question through the chair, please, probably more to Mr. Green. When we looked at the Section 17 review earlier this morning, we talked about the scope of it. Is it appropriate to consider the way we handle our land sales and the way we approach that work under that Section 17 review as well, or is that a separate piece? The question thought came to me as we were going through this today.
We
It seems-
haven't included that to date, and I think probably fair to say we need to do some thinking. It's a good question, and one that we'll do some thinking as officers about.
Cool, okay. It's just a food for thought, and thank you. Sorry, there you are.
No matter where you sit, it's
I
just,
know, it's one of those faces, obviously. I did notice, you mentioned it, Nick, about are we comparing ourselves with the right entities. I noticed that every single one of those on page 58, the measures we're below the national average on. There's not one that we even relatively come close to be fair. And I know we suffer from being the province, we're in the provinces, whereas a lot of this has been driven by the engines of Auckland and Christchurch and Wellington to a degree. And I don't know much about the stuff, to be fair, what you guys do in the background, but maybe we need to be comparing ourselves on a more provincial basis with other districts which have smaller populations than our main centres, which have the same sort of little engines that drive them. I don't think it's necessarily fair, but at the same time, I don't want to see us lowering the bar just because we're falling behind. But maybe we need to do two sets of measures, one with provinces and one overall. I don't know, maybe that's the way forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's something that 17A review will probably get to. There's some good measures there, so that it can be meaningful. You know, it's not about lowering the bar, you're right, it's about, but at the moment, how meaningful is it having a whole lot of orange there when you read it and you think, okay, we're behind it, but we're a small province, etc., etc. It's actually not telling you much. You know, it's not giving you that indication of how we are actually going out there. I think, you know, what we talked about before, the number of building consents, etc., probably a more relevant scale at the moment for me about how the economy is going. So, so that's a real challenge, and then you know, you'll think back through to when you're setting my KPIs, which I'm responsible for delivering the organisational delivery model. I can't deliver this for you. You know, it's outside of my control. So we need to think about how we do that.
Moving on to page 59, the Treasury report. So the first page there is the overall summary of the Treasury report. So you'll see there that the investments section, we have the tick. Probably the thing to point out there as well is that the OCR is at 175, so that's the lowest that I think we've seen in New Zealand. So that's obviously significantly impacting returns on fixed interest and cash investments. Our borrowings 148. And you'll see there in the till fund how, in terms of the performance on the returns, that's down, and that's again primarily because of the interest rate environment that we're in at the moment, because we have a very conservative fund. Flicking over to page 60. So this is more, the investment portfolio side of it here is more around our working capital funds. So you'll see that we're in compliance, and the graph at the top right there with all the red bars, that's just showing you how effectively those term deposits, short-term cash deposits, are kept short to cover working capital and cash flow so that we can pay the bills as we go along through the year. So we effectively just keep that cash at a fairly short current rate to pay the 20s. What else can we tell you on there? The actual cash returns, both cash returns and the yield percentages both actually ahead of target there, and predominantly that's because we've got a little bit more investment cash around. You'll see the year-to-date 461 versus 271, so that's a positive note there. Flicking over to page 61. Again, you'll see our borrowing limits there. We're well within those. The funding and liquidity risk position, that's on the right-hand top box, that bar graph. Again, that liquidity is very important to us, ensuring that we've got our funding in place to cover us going forward, and that people keep lending us money. And you'll see the sub-limits there showing how that's tracking, so it's all very positive. The interest rate performance position, you'll see that our interest costs are slightly ahead of budget there, so by end of year that could come about right, I think. Page 62. So page 62 is the TEL fund. You'll see that the allocation of that fund there is predominantly in fixed interest, currently sitting at 75%. And then you'll see the performance on the dollar basis. We're slightly ahead on a dollar basis for our annual returns, but on a percentage yield basis we're a little bit below, and the explanation is in the box there under TL investment portfolio performance. So the reason that we're ahead on the dollars is that we've got some capital gains on some equity transactions. So yeah, the dollars wise we're looking pretty good there. And page 63, that's just counterparty credit exposure. So what that's basically telling you is that we're investing or borrowing from worthy credit counterparty exposure companies or banks that have a high credit rating, basically. So not dealing with dodgy outfits, I suppose, simple language. And that's a Treasury report. Any questions on that? Either Alan or myself will be happy to answer.
Just a quick question through the chair for you, Mr. Ward. We're projecting an overall yield for 16-17 of about just under 4% for the TEL fund, but you're signalling there that we may fall short of that. How significant would that be for us to fall short? What sort of dollars are we talking here?
I don't think it's going to be significant, because on the other side of the ledger, chances are we're going to be paying less interest on our debt. The recovery in the share markets is helping us. I know we don't have as high a level of exposure to shares as we probably should, but those that we have, we're starting to see some positive gains on.
And just with the Treasury Management Report, one of the counterparties it says Mighty River Power, but would that not be Mercury New Zealand?
Yes, we should change that, thank you. Yeah.
Any further questions? Right. Okay, do we have a mover?
Just through the chair, I just wanted to make a comment. It was just a little bit of feedback, and I guess it was for Mr. Green, regarding, we sent some of our staff down to Kaikoura area recently, and I've just had the opportunity to have discussion with some of the local councils down there and with some of the CDEM network who are working down there with another hat on, and I just wanted to say the feedback on the professionalism of our team and the support that was given to them to keep them safe and in their travel was outstanding. And the names mentioned to me who were particularly awesome was Lisa Nairn, sitting at the end of the table, so I just wanted to give that feedback.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. We have had 4 staff down there last week and a couple more this week. And I think the call is continuing and likely to continue over the next months for more staff throughout the country.
Excellent, thank you for the feedback. Right, okay, the recommendations. Sorry.
Councillor.
God.
Talk
You just
like
put
it's
your flag around. You got a flag?
I need to sit next to you, Rosie. I really do.
God help us.
Just to note, Lisa, those comments came from some very, very drunk coasters who are trying to calm their nerves after some big shakes down there. I just want to say, look, and I'm very, very fast with my criticisms at times, and I'm going to be very, very fast back with comments of positive note. And this is to Gareth. I've got to say, Gareth, in the last 2 weeks, I've had a huge amount of issues, as you know, and you have dealt with them.
Excuse me, what's new?
But I just wanted to say you've handled them incredibly well and very, very fast, and I am very appreciative. So thank you, Gareth. I just want everyone to know that.
And I'd like to agree, in the absence of the Mayor and his illness, Gareth, you've stepped up very well and assisted me with my role, so I'd also like to say thank you very much. So, we move the report. Thank you. Seconder? Thank you, Tom. Okay. All those in favour? Aye. Excellent. Let's just do it. Okay. Appointments to organisations, 4.5, and that's what we went through this morning, is it? Okay, everyone.
Tabled the information from the workshop this morning, and hopefully I'll get this for the candidates. Just want to make sure that they're correct and that they are
Has everyone had a chance to look at them?
No, I haven't seen it. That revised one.
Have you got a revised one?
Yeah. It's one of my issues.
You moved seats. You are sitting in my seat.
3 of us to move your handbag out of the way too, right?
Oh, shush. Oh. Anything else? You had a look now? Were you all happy with those?
Just one comment, will we be, in terms of Councillor Williamson, in terms of the Taupo Sports Advisory Council, what's the situation there? Just confirming. Okay, excellent.
Right. Do we have a mover? John, thank you. John.
Councillor John.
Thank you, Councillor John. Seconder? Are they? 2 of you? Excellent. Pick one. Right. Okay, all those in favour? Aye. Thank you, carried. Okay, so that's the end of that. What do we do now? Right, so now we...
Sorry, Rosie, can I just ask Tina a quick question? Sorry to be a pain. So, Tina, with these organisations, do you get in touch with them and let them know, and then they'll know to go contact? Okay, thanks.
Right, thank you. Well, that's the end of the public meeting, and we'll now move into confidence. But we will include Senior Sergeant Tony Jurison. He's going to give us a briefing now on some police matters. Thank you very much.
I'll move.
Thank you. Thank you. That's lovely. I'm glad you're all moving and seconding and doing everything.